the thought changes, it's the energy changes, it's the emotional changes, it's the perspective, it's the tools that you can implement over time because it is a practice. It is a life practice, an immersive experience. Your intuition isn't just something you learn and then it just works and it's on the surface. It is a full life immersion. Welcome to the Rylee June Show. I'm your host, Rylee June, international intuition coach and spiritual activator. This podcast is designed for the souls who are ready to dive into what spirituality, consciousness, and healing truly is like. Here you will find the conversations and insight most spiritual teachers aren't willing to have. Why? Because we pull back the curtain on what truly takes place as you move through your healing journey, the duality of the light and the dark, and the role ethics and integrity undeniably play in your ascension experience. I have had the pleasure of working with tens of thousands of people, from clients, stories shared through messenger chats, and others in the industry to know exactly what this journey will look like for you. These episodes will share conversations of industry leaders bridging the gap to the new paradigm of reality, and individuals sharing their heart through their soul's journey they've been through and what they've learned along the way. So if you're ready to go deep, unlock truth, and activate into the blueprint of you, this is going to be a space you're not going to want to miss out every Monday. Are you ready? Let's activate. I want to take a moment to start off these episodes by just sharing the reviews that are coming in from you guys. I started to go back to my Apple podcast and look at the beautiful things that you were saying and really just bask in the fact that you're enjoying truly what I am sharing. So this first review, I'm going to start shouting them out at the beginning of the episode. So I would love to hear from you in a 5-star review on iTunes, your takeaways from these episodes, or just what you're really enjoying and why you're enjoying it as you tune in. Not only is it so supportive for podcast producers to be able to get your feedback, but it helps us to be able to spread our message and the thoughts and the trainings that we have to the world. So it's so beneficial, not only to know that you are taking away something beautiful, but also that you are helping us in just a couple moments of your time to spread the word that this is something that's worth for other people to listen to as well. So this particular person, Tayru144, says, listening to Rylee June's podcast is like listening to a friend who tells you what you actually need to hear. I've been working with her since February 2022, and I feel like a whole new person. I have started to manifest abundance and healthy relationships in my life and truly believe she was put in my life for such a bigger purpose. I highly recommend. And it just warmed my heart so much to read something like that because I've been doing this for 2 years now, and a lot of time and attention and dedication goes into this to honestly creating the best experience for you. And one thing that I've always held true is to be honest. And in ethical approaches to energy, honesty is truly the best policy. And it's not always necessarily what people want to hear. I have had clients where when I transitioned from working with anything in the world to working with God, that it really hit a different chord with them. And some of them very resistive to it. And some of them even resisted me because of it. And that's okay. But just to know that what you're taking away from this is something so beneficial and helpful in your life. And not only is it just helpful, but it's actually helping you to transition and create better experiences in your life is truly just such a blessing in so many ways. And I have to thank God for constantly working his magic in my life to be able to guide me to what these episodes need and to connect with you and learn what you need so that I can create those experiences too. So Tayru144, I thank you very much for that review. All right, let's dig in. Hello, beautiful soul. Welcome to another session. I am your host, Rylee June. And today we are going to be really digging into some changes, some announcements, and ultimately intuition. Because in everything that we do, our intuition is 100% involved, whether we are paying attention to it or not. And we're going to talk about why we are not taught about our intuition and truly the power that it leads us to have and understand in our own personal lives, especially when striving for greater. And greater doesn't mean going from $100 to $1 million, or making $10K to making $100K, or having a normal relationship to having this extravagant relationship. Greater can even just be a 1-degree shift. Making slightly more money, having a better health experience, having more connected relationships, or more conversational and connected relationships. Any asset, any facet of your life that you want to improve, greater can be that 1-degree shift, that next step up for you. And we're going to talk about our intuition and how it plays such a massive role in the improvement and equally the empowerment of us showing up consistently in our lives. So before we get started, there is going to be some changes that are coming. I have been in this I don't even know what to call it, this tsunami of honestly ignoring my intuition. And I'm going to dig into this because even if you teach this, preach this, study this, understand this to the depth of your degree, there will still be times where you will resist your intuition, where you will try to go around it or change the course or not listen to it. And honestly, it will always land you in the same place until you just start to listen. And even though I teach this, I preach this, I walk clients through this, I am a human being. And there are times in my life where I get guided to do things that I'm not wanting to necessarily do in that moment. Maybe I don't feel comfortable with it. Maybe I'm not ready for it. I'm determining I'm not ready for it. Maybe 100 other things. There's too much going on. There's not enough time. And honestly, it causes more of a strain, more of a mental barrier, more, or I guess I should say, a strain in even more time than to just not listen. And for me, this was a really interesting lesson to learn about my intuition because it is primarily one of the things that I constantly help my clients through. And I've gone through this before, but not to this level of degree of what I've just been asked to really surrender into. And I'm going to share more about that in a moment. But to really go through this experience of what I'm calling this rebirth stage. And at the beginning of the year, my word was cohesiveness. I wanted this cohesiveness throughout all of my life. And not just where everything is in flow and synchronicity, but that it's simpler, it's easier. That doesn't mean I'm not going to work hard or strive for or stay committed to the things that I'm wanting and desiring and growing into. But most importantly, that this cohesiveness was that my mind, body, and energy was in the same frame of mind, technically, in all areas and facets of my life. My business, my family life, myself, my relationships, all of it, my health, my finances. And I tried to put different areas and aspects off, and I started to realize and I started to study my patterns before even changing anything. This is one of the things about intuition is that before you start to go ahead and change anything, you have to learn to become observant of it. Because if you start changing things without the observation, then you miss such an incredible opportunity to truly see the patterns and synchronicities of where that same experience is showing up in other areas of your life. So I really took the time to be an observer of my experience so I could formulate the patterns and really see what areas required my primary focus and attention. And that way I could make a more tangible plan and set of action steps to follow through with and commit to that was going to inevitably help me in this overall vision, this overarching vision that my intuition was guiding me to, this cohesiveness that I was desiring to experience. So these changes that are coming is all about simplicity. I teach from a place of simplicity where you can understand easily, you can implement easily, you can move through the nuances of whatever mental or emotional barriers are coming up for you more easily, because honestly, life is so complicated and energy work doesn't have to be. We are so multifaceted, multidimensional, and already so complex in the things that we experience and what our minds fixate on, and subconscious beliefs and unconscious experiences and so on and so forth, that when it comes to actually moving yourself forward, I do believe that it really gets to be easy. The challenging part, or the difficult part, is in the consistency, is in the commitment, is actually showing up even when things don't seem like they're going to go your way or work out, or whatever that limiting belief may be. So I have had this, I guess, surrender. Let's call it a surrender, where even at the beginning of the year, God was really showing me that I was needing to take a step back from certain things. I was needing to create or recreate certain things, and really just simplify the experience that I was delivering. I love all things intuition. I love all things helping spiritual entrepreneurs being able to establish, create, and start building on their spiritual practices and businesses. I absolutely love that getting started point. And it really, again, is about consistency. In working with my spiritual entrepreneurs in the mastermind container, that is the foundation of the work. You can learn the modality, you can learn the marketing, you can learn the projects, you can learn the steps, but if you don't show up, carve out that time and take that action, you're never going to get to where you want to go. For example, when I got started, it was me going live. I invested $0 into my business. I hardly even considered that I had a business. I had an offer. It was readings. I'd show up twice a week at 7 p.m., Tuesdays and Thursday evenings, go live, even though it was scary. And I'd just draw cards for people and read from the book. I wasn't even necessarily charging at this point. Sometimes people would send me tips, or they'd ask for my PayPal link. And that was kind of it. Eventually, I got to the point where I wasn't reading from the book anymore. And I was just drawing cards and delivering messages and charging $30 a session. What I wanted to build in the beginning was just honestly the ability to provide a solution or provide answers to people. I wasn't focused on income. I wasn't focused on how much I needed to make. That just ended up being like bonus grocery money for us at the time. And as I continued to realize that I really could make something out of it, that it could potentially be an income source for us, I started to charge, but still show up Tuesdays and Thursdays at 7 p.m. and do live readings for free. I think there's only like 1 or 2 times I've ever done live paid readings outside of the Christmas Love Project that we do every year. I won't do readings, and I didn't last year again, but in the first 2 years that we did it, I offered readings on a live for I think the first year I did them for $20 a reading, and then the second year I just did it like you pick how much you want to send. But where I'm going with this is that in the beginning of anything you do, it is about consistency. And how this even bridges into your intuition is that intuition can be seen as something that is like a cool skill set, or, if I can develop my intuition, I can read other people's energies, or, that'd be interesting, but I don't know how that works in my life because I don't want to be a psychic, or I don't want to build a business, or I don't want to fill in the blank. And the truth is that your intuition isn't this, it's not just this thing, this extension outside of you. Yes, it's a skill set, but it is something that is innately created within us. The Holy Spirit that is within us, the Spirit that is within us, that God placed within us, that is our soul, that keeps us alive, that then lives beyond this physical lifetime, has a language, and that is called intuition. And no matter who you are or what you want or what you strive for in this lifetime, there will always be a desire for better. Whether that's relationships, health, financials, career, self, pick an area, there will always be a desire for better. And what's so important to understand is that the only way to experience greater, even better, is to understand how to become more observant of yourself and listen to that encouraging and empowering voice within that is your intuition. Your intuition does not create fear-based beliefs and thoughts and experiences in your life. That is the world. That is demons. That is entities. That is dark forces. That is limiting beliefs. Some call it ego. Your intuition is always guiding you. And it will only scream as loud as a billboard on the side of the road with the most flashy, fascinating prints on it when you really need to start listening. I've worked with many women who said that in the only times in their life where they really were able to hear their intuition or understand their intuition was when they were in a dire circumstance and they just it was just screaming at them to get out. But your intuition is talking to you far before you get to that dire experience. But some of us, equally in my case, with this cohesiveness in my life that I've been called to, it has been nudging me for quite some time, and I've constantly tried to get around it. I will eventually share what it is. And I have tried so hard to ignore it, to convince myself otherwise, to build a different experience in lieu of it, to change things up, to honestly I was constantly making things more complicated. I was unintentionally making things more complicated because I was directly ignoring my intuition, even though I still could identify what my intuition was trying to tell me. I still tried to say no. And you know what? It just continued to show up with more and more lessons and opportunities to actually listen to it until I finally did. And it felt like a weight was lifted off my shoulders. Oh my goodness. Finally in that decision where I was like, okay, we're going to make this change. It was like everything that I had pent up to carry on, the burdens, the stress, the guilt, the shame, the blame, the whatever, the frustration, it finally just washed away. That doesn't mean that something immediately changed other than my energy, other than my mindset, other than my state of being. That changed, absolutely. But now it is my responsibility to create and step up and take the actions to ensure that that change is in fact made. Because just because I finally surrendered to the download, to the intuitive nudge, it doesn't mean my life changes until I take those actions. And that's where I feel like a lot of people really get confused and conflicted. It's like there's this idea that when your intuition comes through and it drops in a message that all of a sudden your life is going to change. But the truth is that it's not, because if you don't take an action on it or you don't have a plan surrounding that download, then it's just you sitting on a chair wishing and hoping for something to be different. And that's most likely not going to be the case. For example, one of my clients and now really good friends, she had someone approach her about an incredible opportunity. And her intuition was absolutely screaming at her to be a part of this, to take action on this, to join this, to share this experience. And she could have said yes. Well, she did say yes. She could have just said yes and just let that download be like, oh yeah, this is going to be the thing. This is amazing. This is perfect. But if she would have never showed up and put in the work, she would not have built the freedom, the financial freedom, the experience, the passion that she ended up building because of the action she took on that intuitive download. Does that make sense? I'm going to apply it in a few different contexts for you. So your intuition isn't just this like thing that helps you to read other people's energies. And honestly, if that's what you think it is, you've been very misled and deceived, because you should not ever be reading someone's energy without their consent or permission. Never, ever, never, ever, never, ever. And I've said this from the very beginning, because it's like going into someone's house for the first time and going into their bedroom and opening up their drawer and sitting on their bed and just reading their journal. It doesn't matter how open of a person you are, you're immediately going to be put off and set off and be like, what are you doing? Absolutely freaking not, right? Reading someone's energy is the exact same thing, because once you can understand the surface level, the personal level, and the soul level, and you go and apply that, and then more so apply that without consent, it is not a very ethical or even like neutral thing to do. Your intuition isn't this secret access that you all of a sudden get into people's lives just because you know how to navigate it or you know how to use it. And when I teach about intuition, not only do I teach it in the component to be able to read energy, because in order to be more observant of yourself and your energy, you have to understand how to do it, how to read it first. And when you do that, you take away this skill set that actually is very exciting and can be very temptuous, because then it's like, oh, wait, well, I know my friend Susan's having a problem. Maybe I'll sit with my intuition and I'll try and sort it out. But here's the thing, that's deceptive. That's deceitful. And that's not going to help Susan, because not only are you identifying that Susan has a problem, but now you're going in the back door of her energy, of her consciousness, and you're trying to snoop around. That's sneaky. That's not a good thing. And I've seen this done before. I can't personally say that I've ever done it, honestly. I don't think that I have. I may have, but I really don't think that I have, because I can't think of any examples, and I would be honest if it was the case. But I know that it is a very big temptation for a lot of people when they learn that, because then equally, if your spouse comes home or your child comes home and they're all disrupted, right? And you want to figure out what's going on, just have the conversation. Just have the conversation. Literally just have the conversation. And if they don't want you in that experience with them, learn to honor and respect them, because in the same thing that you're desiring, which is likely more communication or deeper communication or connection within them, that's not going to be the way that you do it, because you want communication too. You don't want them to turn around and read your energy and be like, okay, I have the solution, and then walk away and just be like, all right, I'm going to do better tomorrow. No, you want them to actually communicate with you. So you have to be that step up to say, ooh, intuitively, I can feel something is off right now. Let's communicate, right? So your intuition is always nudging and guiding you. And it's always nudging and guiding you in ways that are going to help you. And one other misconception that typically takes place is that your intuition is only going to lead you to rainbows and sunshines and fairyland dreams and all these things. But more often than not, your intuition is going to lead you to uncomfortable situations. I'll give you an example. When I was younger, before I knew anything about intuition, I have always been a very intuitive person. Once I learned about it, I realized that there was a lot of experiences throughout my life, and you will likely experience the same thing too, or have, where my intuition was just like full blown, like I just knew. Claircognizance is one of my greatest gifts, and I can just know things, which again, going back to temptation, I can use that knowing to tap into other people's energies to figure things out about them. But it's not my job. It's not my responsibility. Like my job, and ethically, it is to then communicate if I know something is off about this person, whoever they may be. So when I was younger, I was dating someone, and we were supposed to go to one of our friends. Her parents were out of town. and her older brother was throwing a party, and we got to bring a couple friends and But it also fell on the exact same day as one of our other really good friends' birthday parties. And she was going to just like have a few friends over and have some pizza and watch movies and just hang out. And so out of loyalty, I went to the friend's house where she wasn't having the party. And the friend who was having the party, I would have been able to invite my boyfriend at the time and his friend. But because I didn't want to be disloyal to this other friend who had also planned her birthday on this particular day long before this party, I went there. And so my boyfriend and his friend at the time ended up at another party, which I knew. And I remembered there was like halfway through the evening, it was like around 6 p.m. at night. I can remember this so vividly. All of a sudden, I got this gut-wrenching feeling that something was going to be wrong, that something happened or was going to happen surrounding my boyfriend at the time, and that like something in me was just so unsettled. And I didn't know what it was. I had no idea. I just knew that something was or was going to be wrong or happen that wasn't going to be right. And so immediately I assumed that he was going to cheat on me. And at the time I called him, I was like, hey, what are you doing? He was just like drinking with his friend at his house. Like they were literally just sitting in the house. They hadn't even gone to this party yet. And I was like, oh, okay, yeah, that's cool. Anyways, end of the conversation. And then later that evening, this feeling just like enhanced. And I honestly can only recall maybe like 2 or 3 times in my life where I've had a panic attack. And this was one of those experiences where the world sped up and my body got hot. And I just needed, I don't even know. And I knew whatever was happening at that moment was the feeling that I got, that warning sign that I got. And so I called my boyfriend and he didn't answer. And I called his friend and he didn't answer. And then I was a crazy like young girlfriend, so I called him numerous times. Nobody answered. Eventually I just let it go, and I was like, oh man, like this is gonna suck. And the next day I woke up and I was like, you know what, I don't think this relationship is gonna work. I remember waking up and realizing that even though this was like my first technical boyfriend, that this relationship was just not going to serve me in a better way. That this person was into a lot of things that I didn't agree with, and they just made not the greatest of choices, and that it wasn't even from a place of judgment. It was just like, this just wasn't for me. And so I'd kind of predetermined that it was likely that we were going to break up. But I'm a young, naive girl, and I want to have this boyfriend. And he ended up calling me somewhere in the mid-afternoon of the next day, and it's like, oh, my phone died, and yeah, everything was fine, everything was good. And the party was great, and we came home early and whatever. And I just knew. I was like, no, absolutely not. That is such a lie. So we ended up breaking up. I think he ended up breaking up with me. There's a point to this story, I promise. And it really ties into all of everything that I've talked about. So he ends up breaking up with me, and I felt this sense of relief. Like as sad and upset as I was, it was a sense of relief. But now my ego, my fear kicks in, and oh my gosh, now I don't have a boyfriend. I don't have this to rely on. This is different. This is changed. This is not what I wanted, even though I had literally already determined this was something that was going to be better for me. Oh, I can overlook that. I don't need to focus on that. I can help him. I can save him. I can fix him. I can make him better. I can show him all the reasons why he deserves me in his life. Like, literally, I feel like this isn't even like a young female thing at this point. Like, we do this even in our adulthood with relationships. And I never ended up getting what happened. We ended up kind of getting back together, not really, dragged it out for a couple months, and then that was kind of it, sayonara. But I eventually started to feel better. Like when he was finally, we completed this, whatever that was supposed to be, broke up for good, it was actually better. I felt more at ease. I wasn't stressing out. Sure, I missed him. Sure, all these other things that tried to suck me back into wanting to reach out and create some kind of experience. Who knows what that would have been. My life actually just improved, and I wasn't stressed out worrying about where he was or what he was doing or all these things, or needing some form of like validation anymore. And almost 2 years later, I think it would have been like 2.5, 3 years later, I actually ended up becoming really good friends with his friend, just amicable friendship. And we were hanging out and we were just like sharing stories of like the good old days and party times. And he shared about this one night when him and my ex went to this party, and my ex ended up hooking up with this girl and so the story goes. And like all these things that led around it. And I remember sitting on the couch having an epiphany moment. All of a sudden, everything flooded back to me, and it was like this string of events just finally made sense. From calls to text messages to this party event to the things afterwards, like all of it. It just finally made sense. And I remember my eyes just like blowing out of my face and my jaw hitting the floor, and I was like, no way. And he had no idea that I didn't know. He assumed that I knew to like some extent and degree. But where I'm going with this is that in that moment, why it was such an epiphany is because my intuition had come full circle with me. It had finally come full circle 2 to 3 years later as to why I had that intense feeling and knew that I needed to make a different change. And when I made that change, or when that change was made for me, but I stuck with it and I was consistent with it, the lesson, the understanding came years later. Contrary to popular belief, when you figure out the lesson of what your intuition is guiding you to, that aha moment, it's typically not 5 minutes after you get the download, right? And why I share this specific story is because even in that moment, it's an example of like what I kind of have gone through right now. Not even kind of, it's what I've gone through right now, where my intuition was guiding me to something. And in the past, I would have waited until the other person or the situation would have totally blown up or fallen apart to finally decide, okay, there's a sign, let's settle that. Whereas now I'm at the point where even when I ignore my intuition, it still doesn't drag on very long until I finally decide, okay, I'm going to make this choice and change for my highest good. I'm going to make this choice and change because my intuition knows my future greater than me. God is trying to speak through me with my intuition. Your intuition is a language, the language of your soul, the soul which connects to God, the one who created that soul within you, and Holy Spirit. And God is trying to help me to go to and find and understand a bigger picture. And now, because I know what I know and I can observe and I can connect and I can see the synchronicities and I can really sit in the feelings and the emotions and the experiences, whether I listen right away or not, I can inevitably make these choices for me, trusting and knowing that where I'm headed is going to be so much easier, simpler, graceful, full of life, full of love, full of joy, less emotional manipulation and weight and mental weight, and ease and flow and cohesiveness. And whether you relate to the story of the boyfriend with the intuition, the nudges, or a relationship you're in right now, or maybe it's about your health, you constantly keep eating bread and you keep having flare-ups and reactions, and your intuition is telling you not to buy it, not to eat it, to eat something else, to grab some strawberries, or to eat a salad, or to substitute with quinoa, or whatever the case may be. But you keep doing it anyways. If you're not able to observe the patterns that you're making each day, the patterns that you are living in each day, and you're going to struggle to be able to listen to the intuition that's probably screaming at you as your body is getting inflamed and you're getting super tired and you're extra restless and you're constantly needing something to up your energy levels, when your intuition is yelling at you, to be able to actually listen. Because you don't understand how your energy works. And that is what your intuition allows you to do and to navigate. And it makes decision making and processing and communication and striving for better and consistency and faith so much easier because you're not trying to rely on outside satisfactions or outside justifications to crumble or to make those decisions for you before you finally just say it's enough. And this is such a powerful time in our lives because the system is literally designed to not teach us this. Because if the system taught us this about our intuition, about our energy, about our emotions, about our behaviors, about observation, we wouldn't have the bullying like we do. We wouldn't have children so lost and confused and not even knowing who they are because now all of a sudden they have this choice to choose their identity or to choose their gender. And it's so upsetting because these are all things that are pulling and separating and segregating us from our soul. And whether you agree with me or not, that doesn't mean what I'm saying isn't true. When we are designed and when we enter into a system that is designed to keep us complacent and silent and still and only look to authority for our answers, we will always be complacent to our intuition because we are literally trained to not be able to trust ourselves, to stand up for ourselves, to advocate for ourselves, to communicate with ourselves. And when we can't do those things, then we have to rely on an outside source for justification. Your intuition steps in and fills that gap and takes away that need of outside validation. Because now you build a foundational experience with yourself and with God that allows you to be able to grow and evolve and to trust when things come up that are leading you to a greater place, even if the initial decision is uncomfortable. I remember in school that I had this one teacher who would always pick on me, partially because I was always fiddling around with my phone, but even at the times where I wasn't and somebody else's phone went off or somebody else close to me was playing on their phone and she'd catch it out of the corner of her eye, she'd always look to me and blame me for being on my phone and she'd always take it away. And one day she told me, okay, give me your phone. And I wasn't even playing on it. And I looked at her and I said, no, I'm not even using it. And she was like, give me your phone. And I got up and I walked out of that class because I realized in that moment that she doesn't get to have the authority over me, especially when I'm not even doing anything. And it was so interesting to be able to look back at these circumstances of where my intuition, though standing up in front of a classroom and deciding to walk out in the middle of class is extremely uncomfortable and could potentially get me into trouble, which thankfully my parents were always on their children's side, so they didn't blame us just because the teacher said so. My mom a few times went in and actually reamed out the principal saying you don't have the right to take away her phone. And I'm not going to keep coming down here to pick it up for her. Just leave it in her bag or kick her out of class. And I'm very grateful for that because it really showed me that the responsibility and the onus is on me. It's not on an authority figure. And we see this so often in the spiritual development communities specifically because then we pinpoint these gurus and we place these figureheads above ourselves where it's they're also people learning in this life too. Yes, they may have a particular skill set or knowledge, so learn it and take it in and absorb it, but don't make the person your idol. And that was something from the very beginning of teaching people about intuition and actually transitioning from readings to intuition that really stood out to me, is that people started to look to me as this figurehead or this guru or this all-knowing, and I couldn't stand it because I developed a skill set that allowed me to have this insight, but it's not an insight that you can't have for yourself. But oftentimes a lot of people, and maybe this is you right now, or maybe it was you don't want to have to figure it out for yourself. You want someone to just give you the answers. You want the answer sheet to the test. You want the next 5 steps. But that's not how life works. Because even if I give you the next 5 steps of what you need to do, because my intuition told me so, You may or may not agree with them. You may or may not take action on them. You may or may not take action on them in the same order. You may not even want to do any of that at all. You may not understand the bigger picture of where those steps are leading you to, and so they don't become much of a priority. But when you have the awareness for yourself, because your intuition nudged you and it guided you and it showed you the bigger vision, the next step, whatever, it is solely your responsibility to take action on that. And because we've become this entitled society, and I'm going to include myself in this in many different cases in my life, because we've become this entitled, complacent society, we look to the government to tell us when or not we can wear a mask, or what or what not we should put in our bodies, or what or we should do with our lives and our career and our investments and our money. And that doesn't actually empower anybody. That just gives this false idea that these people know better. But especially when it comes to money, please look at how governments spend it. And it's like, I'm sorry, why am I listening to you? Or you look at the actual non-paid for science behind the whole regime that we went through and still are going through, right? And it's like, I'm sorry, why am I listening to you? It's just so hypocritical and there's nothing to back it up. So my whole point is that your intuition isn't just this cool thing that you get to learn. It is foundationally a part of who you are, especially if you strive for greater in any area or all aspects of your life. Because it teaches you to be more observant. It teaches you to find your patterns and synchronicities. And it teaches you to have that radical self-accountability, even when it might be uncomfortable or challenging or scary. But what's happening is that uncomfortable, challenging, or scary feeling that you're feeling is actually you just ridding away the negativity, the negative thoughts, the limiting beliefs, maybe even the demonic energies that you've been listening to that have told you to stay complacent and stay small and stay still. But your soul is greater than that. Your energy is so much greater than that. And in order to truly overcome things in your life, you have to know how to understand yourself, to communicate with yourself. In order to communicate better with others, you have to learn how to communicate better with yourself. If you want to dictate the better that other people should do, you have to first learn to surrender to them finding that experience for themselves too. Not meaning that you can go and you can share all the things that you think that they should do that would better improve their lives, and you may absolutely be right. But they still need to come to that conclusion for themselves. And that's where it can get very invasive when you start tapping into other people's energies, because if they're not ready to hear it, or they don't want to hear it, or they don't want to be accountable to it, then they're just not going to be. And then you're going to be stuck in this place of frustration and overwhelm because you knew better and you thought better and your intuition told you so. But then you're missing out on the surrender. You're missing out on the part that is so important for you to learn. And that aha moment, that lesson will come later. Not right away, because now you're in this whirlwind of, oh, they should listen to me and I know better and I thought better and my intuition told me so, and why aren't they doing this, and no. It's like, until you learn to get over that part, you won't see the actual lesson of what it was leading you to. Maybe it was more radical self-accountability. Maybe it was surrender. Maybe it was guidance. Maybe it was some kind of intrinsic value that you needed to uncover within yourself, or a standard, right? You'll never really know until that moment of true surrender. So your intuition is always working in your favor. And where I see a lot of people get stuck is that they think it has to be this immediate thing. Download dropped in, life is going to change. No. Or they think that in the midst of change and challenge that their intuition isn't clear enough. No, your intuition is clear enough. That download already came in. Your responsibility is in taking those steps and taking those actions and holding yourself up to consistency. And that's what a lot of people don't like. That's what I literally have gone through with this new surrender that I'm going through, where I am going to be transitioning the podcast and a lot of my programs back to just teaching on intuition. I love it. I could jam on it all day. It's so easy. It's so effortless. It's so honest. It's so raw. And I hold such a different perspective. And in my opinion, a more ethical and practical perspective than a lot of the new age, if not all of the new age spiritual practices. Because in my practice, I'm not here to align you with everything of the world. How do you ever expect to evolve if you're constantly relying on the validation of the world? I'm here to support you in going to God, to the source that literally created you, and coming into that connection, that true, pure connection. Because in those moments where you think you know better about somebody else or something else, and you want to share it and they're not following through, then they're not listening, they're not doing it, or whatever the case may be, whether that's you, whether it's someone else, you have to have faith. And I heard this analogy the other day, and I know the intention behind it was from a genuine place, but it was so off. So I'll tell you what this person said. And this person said that in order for you to move forward, you have to build a foundation of rocks. You have to build a foundation of rocks so strong and so solid that no matter what comes your way, you will not be swayed. And I can understand that to the degree where it's like you want a solid foundation, right? Like that's the kind of the visual that you get with it. But I'm going to share a parable with you. So there's this parable, and I'll put it in the show notes of which one it specifically is in the Bible. But it essentially goes like this. There is a crow who comes across this area of land. And there are these seeds that start to drop from its claws. And some of the seeds drop on a dusty road. And because there's nowhere or way for it to anchor in or for that seed to get the moisture that it needs, it can't grow. And then there's the seeds that drop on the bed of rocks. And again, because there's cracks and there's crevices, it falls through and it just kind of gets lost or gets swept away with the wind. So again, there's no actual foundation. But then there are the seeds that fall on the dirt. And these seeds have an opportunity to now be nourished and watered and to blossom and bloom and grow because they have a place where they can now plant roots. And your intuition is you planting roots. It's why I so often say that if you, the source of your intuition, the source of your guidance, the source of your connection is so wildly important because it's like the seed in the soil. You can plant roots, and it actually makes your foundation so much stronger because unlike the rocks, there's cracks and there's crevices and there's no like landing part. There's nowhere for roots to actually grow. It just sits and becomes dormant and stagnant and ultimately complacent to its environment. But with soil, you can plant roots, which are like directions of guidance. And they're the multifacets of your life, your health, your wealth, your relationships, parenting, all the things, right? So you plant all these roots that are all different aspects of your life. And then from that place, you can start to grow, right? And the more that you grow, the thicker the roots, the denser the roots have to get. So now your foundation isn't in one thing that's never going to change, that is hard as a rock. It's in something that is malleable and moldable and rooted in creation, where God can flow through you. Intuition can flow through you. Life can flow through you. And without embedding in that soil, you will always be complacent to the validation of the external world because you're relying on your own limited perception or beliefs. The experiences that are out of your control, that are emotionally manipulating you constantly. Right now we have, Canada has, they're dousing out shots to kids, and the farmer convoys coming here, and there's Bill C-11 that's coming in that's supposed to basically limit all Canadian production and media from ever reaching anywhere unless you have 17 different languages associated with it and it meets a very specific criteria. So it's like there's all these things that are happening, and it's like But do they really matter? Because quite honestly, the God that I pray to, the God that I build a relationship with, he is much bigger and vast and grander than these bills. He knows the outcome of the uncomfortable situation that the farmers are in, that our food chain supply is in, this genuine recession that we're in, that everybody tries to, all the politicians try to say we're not in. The general definition of a recession is when the GDP drops. The GDP has dropped globally. We are in a recession. It is why everything is higher. But emotional manipulation tries to keep us complacent to, no, don't worry. Don't prepare. You don't need to. It's fine. Until 5 to 6 months from now, where we see big market crashes and we see a lot of the food chain disrupted. And we find ourselves maybe not necessarily having bare shelves, but having very expensive food, even more than it already is. And we don't think of these things because our foundation is in the rocks or it's on the swept away dirt road. But when it's in the soil, you can see this and you can say, okay, I get to start making some preparations. Maybe it's little shifts in degrees. Hey, maybe I don't actually end up needing it, but wow, thank God that I have this backup plan, that I was able to prepare, that I was able to look ahead. If you can look ahead, I'm reading the, what's it called? Quadrant. It's a Rich Dad, Poor Dad book. I think it's called, I cannot remember it, but I'll link it in the show notes below. But anyways, I'm reading this chapter that's all based on like financial intelligence. And it says that in order for you to be able to get ahead or to do better than the amateur, you have to be able to be closer to the information. You have to be able to observe and to plan and to go to bigger sources other than the ones that are keeping you complacent. So in my trainings, in Intuition Immersion that is officially open for enrollment, it's about empowering you with the knowledge to be able to apply yourself far beyond this program, far beyond me. It's literally teaching you how to take a step back and engineer your life. And that might seem like a lot of work, but honestly, it's the thought changes, it's the energy changes, it's the emotional changes, it's the perspective, it's the tools that you can implement over time because it is a practice. It is a life practice, an immersive experience. Your intuition isn't just something you learn and then it just works and it's on the surface. It is a full life immersion. And that is so important to understand, because even if maybe my program isn't for you and you go to another intuitive program, if it's all surface level, if it's not thought provoking and it doesn't challenge you for radical self-accountability and it doesn't inform you of your ethical responsibilities and it doesn't allow you to evolve who you are, it just teaches you, a couple concepts and then call it a day. And one of the main ones is let's meditate. I often don't meditate. My meditation is sitting on the bench in the morning with my husband with a cup of coffee. Because I realize that though meditation is a helpful practice, meditation is presence, by the way, if you didn't know that. Meditation is equally coloring with your children at the table without your phone on or the TV on. Meditation is gardening. Meditation is sitting on the couch with your cat, petting it, or throwing the ball for your dog. Meditation is sitting down and really focusing in on work without distractions around you. Meditation is presence. And if you don't know that, or a program isn't teaching you that, you're always going to feel like you're not doing enough. You're always going to feel like you're out of balance or out of alignment. And that's why in Intuition Immersion, it is a full life immersive experience, so that you can create that space for your intuition to come through for you, so that it is a clear download that even if you resist it, you still know it's going to be the thing that you need to take action on. So the podcast is going to be shifting. We're going to bring our focus back to intuition, awareness, really honing in on this. Intuition Immersion is going to be my signature program that I'm just going to continue to build and improve and to support you in, especially going on maternity leave. Simplicity and flow and ease. It is such a powerful 8-week experience that you truly can go at your own pace, where it's also a resource for you to come back to. So this first round, there's going to be 2 live group Q&A coaching Zoom calls, but going forward, there will not be. There's also a VIP option where you can get personalized coaching from me with a group, whoever is in the VIP with you, incredible, incredible women. And then that's just going to be it. For my spiritual leaders and healers and teachers and trainers, those who want to start or are starting, I'm going to launch the mastermind a couple times a year. And there will be a limited group component, group coaching component, or a live training component for me. Because now that program, once we finish this round in the middle of September, it will literally be complete. It will have everything you need, from the tangible stuff like business development, email marketing, product development, both physical products and online products, marketing, sales, accountability, manifestation, energy reading, understanding your emotions, the drop-through method to help support your clients in a deeper way, like all of it. It has literally all of it. So once we complete that round, or this round, it is not going to be a live program anymore. And I'm just going to focus in on this podcast and supporting you with understanding your intuition, sharing the Intuition Immersion program. And that's just what I'm going to do. And it feels so good, because ultimately I just want to be a mom to my kids. I just want to be present with my family. And I've built and created an experience where I actually can do that if I surrender to it. And that is my goal, and that is my focus. And that's why I started all of this in the first place. And I thought in the beginning, I need more. I need more programs, I need more options, I need more offers, I need more. I don't need more. More often than not, you don't need more either. And once you have your intuition, you really, truly have everything. I really do wholeheartedly believe that. And it is what got me started on this journey to begin with. Is 6 out of 18 modules into the first course that I ever took, my jaw hit the floor and I couldn't believe we were doing things backwards. And my intuition told me I needed to go live and tell people about this. And so I just verbal diarrhea. Oh my gosh, do you guys know about intuition? Let me tell you. And it led me to readings. And it led me to community building, and it led me to the most phenomenal friendships that I never could have manifested or imagined in my life, but yet I have them today. And in 2023, the only other experience that I'm really going to be plugging into is in-person events. There is a group of women that I met through a membership founded out of the States, and we're going to do community building and in-person events for our city. That's what we're going to do in conferences, and we're going to grow it into that. So the Divine Expander free Facebook community is going to be a really beautiful resource place for you, as well as this podcast. I'll probably drop in some YouTube videos every once in a while, especially when I have guests on the show. But this is ultimately going to be an experience of just learning and growing and developing, because that's what life's about anyways. I will open up a few one-on-one spots in the new year. I'm currently only enrolling one-on-one for monthly periods. So for August and September, I will take on clients one-on-one for the 4 weeks at a time. And that's it. That's what we're going to do. So things are shifting. Energy is moving. Cohesiveness is here. It's now. It's accessible. And it just feels so good. And this feeling, this peace, this ease, this flow, this faith, this trust, this hope, This is what I'm bottling up and has been put into the Intuition Immersion experience for you. So all the links of anything I referenced today are going to be in the show notes. The program will stay open for enrollment until August 31st, and then it will close for its first round. And that way I can really focus in on this first group and just get your thoughts and your feedback, and really find out where there gets to be any extras that needed to be added. But let me tell you, this first week of the program is all about tuning out the world and finding yourself. And that is one of the core foundational pieces that I talked about in the beginning, was really that observational piece, raising your standards, understanding that next level of you, so that as you go deeper and uncover more, it's easier to be less resistive to your intuition when it's nudging and guiding you. All right, this was a big episode. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did. And I am just sending you all so much love. I'm really excited about this new chapter. If there's anything specifically you would like to know or hear about surrounding intuition or energy, please send me a message on Instagram, and we'll definitely cover it in the episode. All right, don't forget to find your magic in today. Before you go, I would love and appreciate so much if you could take a moment of your time to leave a 5-star review. It helps me to be able to get this message out to so many more in the world, and I am so truly thankful that you choose this place to be every single week. Until next time, don't forget to find the magic in today.